I think it's important that we look at the larger perspective of this bill. This isn't about one particular incident or one particular city. This is setting a precedent for events yet to come, for cities that have not yet experienced disasters. And I'm very concerned about that it is setting a dangerous precedent. I represent a community up in the Red River Valley which experiences flooding quite often, devastating floods that have devastated our area, and we've needed help at times when that has happened. And local government aid, I don't think that is the vehicle through which we should be addressing this particular issue, because it is so critically important to those communities in our area. And it seems to me like it's kicking people when they're down. If you have a community that's experiencing a major flood, and then on top of the flood and the major damage that's been done and the cleanup work that's being done, now they're hit with cuts to their local government aid or their county program aid as well. The Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities says in their written opposition to this bill, stated that to use local government aid as a penalty erodes the very purpose of local government aid. Its purpose is to address property tax inequities and to ensure that all communities, regardless of where they're located, receive good quality basic services. And this bill would weaken the LGA program that is so critical to the success of our rural communities. We need to be strengthening rural communities, especially now with the struggles they've been going through, especially with the pandemic. And this requires that we defend local government aid. I've been especially concerned about local government aid now given the fact that we're in a budget session and facing a deficit. I recall back in the early 2000s when I first came into the legislature and the House, the significant cuts that were being made to local government aid and county program aid in order to balance the budget. It was devastating for our communities because it led to increasing property taxes and it led to cuts to vital rural services. It really amounted to a pay more, get less strategy, again, that was devastating for our communities that were already struggling. We're still trying to recover from those cuts. And now, as I say, we're facing a pandemic as well. So we are facing a crisis in our rural communities as well. And I mentioned the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. I think it's important to note that there's all kinds of organizations representing rural voices and rural concerns that have spoken up to voice their concerns about this bill. The League of Minnesota Cities had said that for small cities across the state, losing a sizable portion of their LGA could affect the city and county credit rating, and in a worst-case scenario could result in a default on outstanding bonds. Again, at a time when they would be struggling because they'd be facing disaster themselves. So I see any attempts to weaken local government aid or county program aid as an attack really on our rural communities that depend so much on these programs for critical services. This bill would weaken local government aid and county program aid, which really is the lifeblood of many of our rural communities. So think about the larger picture here. Think about the negative consequences this is going to have to people throughout the state. That's what this is really about.